Hello and welcome to A Book in 5 Minutes. My name is Lindsay Milner from Silver Training, and I work with people to help them to get more out of work and learn to love Mondays. And while I've been engaged in that work, I've read a great deal of books. Books on thinking, effective management, business development and personal development. And I thought it might be interesting to share some of those books with you. So this week's book is called Black Box Thinking, and it is by Matthew Syed, and it is subtitled, let me have a read, Marginal Gains and the Secrets of High Performance. No book to show you the cover because it's an electronic copy. I read this book actually a few months back, and I thought I'd already reviewed it, but when I came to look for it, I haven't. So I've actually read it again, and there's so much of value in this book. I can't tell you how worthwhile it is to read. It's very entertaining. I did not get bored through reading it a second time. It was longer than I remembered. It did take me a long time to get through it, but the lessons in there, the value that's in it is so worthwhile that I totally recommend it. And it's essentially a sort of examination of what it means to succeed, and a completely new, well, no, that's probably exaggerating. It's probably not completely new, but it's a new approach to failure. And most of the book focuses on organisations and how organisations approach failure. And it provides a contrast between the aviation industry and the healthcare sector and their respective approaches to failure. He talks about the aviation industry and what happens if there's a near miss or some other error, or obviously a crash. You know, if an airplane crashes, that is a failure by any stretch of the imagination. But the way aviation responds to failure is by really carrying out a thorough investigation into what happened, why, what lessons can be learned, what they can do to put in place to make sure that the same mistake doesn't happen again. And there's lots of different examples, but one that sticks in my mind is where there were some crashes happening in a particular circumstance, a particular way, and they discovered that there were actually two controls right next to each other that were very, very similar, but did completely incompatible things. And under the pressure, people were actually pressing the wrong one, and the landing gear was not coming down or something. It was doing something completely different to what they actually wanted it to do, which the button right next to it did. So once they realised that this was the cause of the error, they just changed the controls so that it was more intuitive. I think they changed one so that it was a steering wheel because it matched the landing gear, the wheel, and the other they made a lever because that matched, I don't know, it might have been the wings. But that then meant that that particular mistake disappeared overnight. It just didn't happen at all. And it contrasts this with a sort of blame culture, but it also contrasts it with the healthcare system, where if errors are made, then lots of excuses. If patients die, that's a failure. If you have not saved your patient, is it because of some systematic problem, like the two levers next to each other, or some system that's just incorrect? Or is it because the doctor's incompetent? Or is it just one of those things? It was a complication, nobody could have foreseen it. And the book talks about how a lot of the time the healthcare system falls back on it was unfortunate. It was just one of those things. It was a complication. We couldn't foresee that this complication would happen. But they never do any investigation into whether there are systemic errors, systemic problems which are leading to the same error. He talks about the error signature, and do they have the same characteristics, and can they be put right in a really simple way. And what he says is that the healthcare system has a culture of brushing aside these, or alternatively they go for the scapegoat approach, that you did something really wrong, and a whole blame culture, and really sort of demonize one particular individual within the system. He uses lots of examples, not just from these two sectors, but from business, from politics, from social care as well as healthcare. And although the book is mainly about the organisational aspects of it, there is such a lot in there that you can take on an individual level as well. There's a lot of stuff about the growth mindset, how learning from your failures is fundamental really to learning to get better. Another example he gives is David Beckham as a child practicing his free kicks over and over and over and over and over, and how he takes that to then when he makes a really high profile mistake and he's kind of demonised by the British press, how he then the next time he's learnt from his mistake, he's moved on and he carries on and becomes obviously the legendary footballer that we all know he is. So it's a really interesting book because there's a lot to learn from an organisational level. So if you're senior in an organisation or senior with a team, then definitely read this book. But if you are an individual who wants to learn how to deal with failure in order to achieve success and to become better at what you do, then there's so much that's worth it for you too. So I can't think of any negatives of this book, so go out and get it. That is Black Box Thinking by Matthew Syed. That's this week's book in 5 minutes. I'm Lindsay Milner, and until next time, bye.